Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kristen Kleinschmidt, and I have had the opportunity to train and be educated by some of the best horsemen and horsewomen in the world. And I take my horsemanship very, very seriously. And I have had an experience with a horse that I purchased recently, um, that my traditional timing, feel, release, my traditional education, um, just it didn't seem to work with him. I couldn't figure out whether he had been um, abused when he was started, or it just everything that I tried, and I do seem to experiment and go out of the out of the traditional box. It's just we it just wasn't working. We weren't communicating. At times, he was very aggressively defending himself, whether it was biting, ear pinning, kind of kicking at you. And so, a few years ago, I'd been exposed to positive reinforcement training, and I really knew that that was the missing piece from my horsemanship. So my horses always did what I asked, but I realized adding the positive reinforcement added the piece of instead of just doing what I wanted, they were actually doing something because it was in it for them and that they were enjoying themselves. And so I had big changes with my regular horses. And again, tried the positive reinforcement with Waylon. He was to a point that he needed some expert help. So he went and stayed with Melissa for about 6 months. And I picked him up last month, and he was in a really good place, made some huge changes. You could just tell on a cellular or like on a spiritual level, sorry, that he was a different horse. We got home and he reverted a little bit, and you could kind of tell that I just being reintroduced to the herd, and um, just being back here sort of maybe brought up some spots that maybe we had developed in between us. So I kept really strongly reinforcing what Melissa showed me and taught me. And within a week or so, he settled out, and I noticed that he was starting to bond with me. So, like most people, I'm former military, a successful professional, and I do have some type A qualities. And so I immediately noticed when Waylon, when we weren't communicating, or he was getting frustrated with me, or I was getting frustrated with him, I noticed this spot in me that kind of would raise its head, in what we kind of call where I felt like I needed to firm up on him, or basically tell him, you need to do this now because I'm saying so. So I recognized that. And I also kind of felt sometimes like I didn't really like him. like maybe I shouldn't have bought him, or he's not going to be what I wanted. We're not going to have the goals and that I had wanted um, to to have with him. And so I really, when I felt that come up in myself, a couple of times I just stopped for the evening and just said, okay, that's a bad place in me, and he's feeling my energy, and I got to step back, take a breath, and go at this again and tomorrow. So I did that a couple of days in a row. And then Melissa gave me some advice about starting to play with him a little more. So, and that, again, these are things that I traditionally would not have done. But I got a jolly ball and a foam noodle, and we do a lot of obstacles, but it's mostly to get through the obstacles, especially correct bend, refinement, turning on center, those sort of things, and just making it where your horse felt confident to go through those. Not desensitized, I don't like that word, but confident going through the obstacles. But I've never really allowed myself or my horses to just play and enjoy themselves.
Hello, Moto.
So, I don't know. So it's very hard to allow yourself to just experience life and love life and be happy and just have fun with your horse. So I started experimenting with that more. And I just noticed that Waylon, I was dropping my kind of my internal wall against him. And I noticed that he was slowly starting to let me in. So we did that for a few more days. And then there was one day he was out in the field and he was up in our arena, and I could tell that his belly was really itchy. So I walked out in the pasture and I just walked up to him, and he kind of pinned his ears just a little at me, like, "What are you doing?" And so I just started scratching his belly. And the first time in 2 years that I've owned him, he absolutely 100% dropped all of his like defensive posturing. His energy just let go. He put his head up and did the lip curl and kind of spread out and just let me scratch his belly. And I just stood there for 20 minutes scratching his belly. I do pride myself on being pretty aware of my horses and how they communicate with me, and my guys talk to me 24/7, 365. Sometimes I wish that I wouldn't have learned to listen to them because they aren't nonstop talking to me. But this was the first time that I literally felt in my soul that another being just let me into his spirit. And so it was very palpable and awesome. And I don't think that I could have gotten to that point using my traditional aids, no matter how good of release, feel, timing, biomechanics, all of that stuff is super, super important. And it'll be very important as we progress. But until I got to that point where he really let me in, and for that moment truly trusted me and liked me, and I really liked him, I don't think we could have progressed. So I'm very, very thankful for all the education and mentoring, and she'll be mentoring me, I'm sure, until the day I ride my last horse, which hopefully won't be for another 40 years or so. But just the feeling of truly connecting to your horse, especially when you've gone through some issues and you've had some challenges, just makes it even that much more of an amazing feeling. So I just wanted to share my experience with you.
That is an incredibly heartwarming story. And I know how real it is for you. And I know how hard that it is, because I know that you are very highly skilled. Um, and I know that you do take a lot of pride in your horses doing what they're supposed to do and being safe and being mannerly and all of those things. So for you to do positive reinforcement and be satisfied with the product that you're getting in your horses, not just from a connection standpoint, but also from just being able to live with them, it really speaks volumes, because I know you have very high standards. Can you talk a little bit about how you think that positive reinforcement helped you bond with this horse and get him to let his defenses down and open himself up to you?
So I just think that, when you just add that element of having, and again, thank God he's food driven, like his owner, obviously. Um, it just adds that element of, we're doing this not because I'm mandating it, or we're showing, or we have a clinic, or whatever, because KK wants it, Kristen wants it. I'm doing this I'm doing this with Kristen because I want to do it, and there's something in it for me, and it's fun. I've, my older warm blood that I started, it has a very similar disposition to Waylon. And I really wish I would have had this tool when I started him. Dewey's always wanted, he's the kind of horse that always asks why. So why do we have to do this? Why do I have to go forward? I've already done a 20-meter circle 3 years ago. Why do I have to do another one? So we still do very good, and positive reinforcement has helped me get far with him. But I wish I would have had that initially. So instead of, having to come in with my leg or send him, that it could have been a more positive thing. And I think, or, more in it for him to go forward or think forward or do something because he wanted to do it. So I just think that it is, we talk a lot about, with my traditional horsemanship, if I come up to you and you're in the middle of taking a geometry final and I say, hey, would you come out and help me muck the barn? You're probably going to say no, versus me waiting for the appropriate time to ask you to come and help me. You're going to be much more likely to do that. Well, just think about how much more likely you're to do that if you're not doing anything. You owe me a favor. Plus, when we're done, mucking the barn, not only am I going to praise you and thank you for doing this with me, by God, there's a little treat at the end as well. So it just adds that extra incentive, motivation, and you're doing it more as a partnership versus a leader subordinate. And so it's a really real interesting and new feel for me, which it feels good to me. That feels when your horse wants to be with you and they're safe and they have good manners, and if the deer jumps out of the tree and they spook, they may lose track of you for a minute, but then they're going to find you again because you are their partner and you're their leader, and they find comfort and reward being with you. So it does it makes the whole package even that much better. And as far as manners, so yes, my horses tie, they load, they do not kick you, they're good with their feet. Waylon had some pretty big issues with his feet. Again, I think he could have been started a little differently, but with the positive reinforcement, his manners compared to when I was trying to get that done with my traditional skill set, night and day as far as safety. I was able to trim his feet a couple days ago, and he was just a perfect gentleman. He didn't take his foot back. He wasn't leaning on you. And so that has made a huge difference with him.
All right, super. Well, I really appreciate you sharing your heart with us on this, and I appreciate your dedication.
And I'm sorry for crying.
Oh,
I'm
that's
sorry.
right.
And there's no way to explain it. No matter what profession you are, so I'm a healthcare provider, every once in a while you just have that sense that someone is sick or something is wrong. It's just your soul tells you that, the energy around you tells you that. And when you are really connected with your horse and you're making good changes and they want to be with you, literally it's palpable. That experience of rubbing Waylon's stomach that day was palpable to me, and it's changing me as a person, not only professionally, my horsemanship wise, hopefully my relationship with my family. It just changes everything. So very blessed.